Yeah, so fast forward 6 years later, I have a lot of reflections. I have a lot of things to share and to talk about, you know, what things should I have considered, what things have happened during my journey. So in this particular video, I want to share with you two things, just two, just two for today, things that I should have considered career-wise about moving to the UK, which I think a lot of people do not think about. When you hear about moving to the UK, you think, coming from Africa, you think you have made it. This is the best thing ever to happen to you at that time. But I want to promise you, there are things that you really need to critically think about before you make your move. So I wrote them down on a little sticky note so that I don't talk about everything and anything. So the first thing I want to talk about is when you get that job, when you find the job that you think you're going to fit in, think about the career trajectory of that job and the role that you're currently in, wherever you are in the world, and moving to the UK and how different the environments are. Even if it's in the same academic environment, always think critically about, does this role actually fit your skills? Does this role translate to, does your current role translate to the role that you want to take up in the UK? Or if you want to change career, that's fine. But I want to talk about my experience. So I was in a fairly senior management role. I was managing a whole portfolio of multi-country studies. I worked in research support, and it was a very fairly senior role where I was making strategic decisions. I was in a leadership position. I led a whole team, and I was managing millions of dollars in research funding. And I was in charge of delivering these projects. And I was also in charge of partly of the teaching, just to keep my academic career going, and a little bit of manuscript writing, but not so much. So little did I know when I applied for a postdoctoral position, how we treat postdocs where I come from in Zimbabwe is completely different to how postdocs are treated here in the UK. When I say treated, I mean the role and what is expected of a postdoc and the level that you are expected to be working at. So I already came in with about 13 years management experience of managing major research funding, managing huge portfolios of research, and managing researchers. Now, coming into a postdoctoral position in the UK is completely different. A postdoc position in the UK is considered an early career position, not strategic thinking, not leadership most of the time. And you are most likely going to be working with others who are also fairly new in the research arena. They're just graduated or they're only starting out, so early career. And when I came in, I was already fairly senior, but now I took up a position as a postdoc. So I was considered an early career researcher. But these are things that I actually realized after I had already landed the job, after I had been in the department for a while, and thought, okay, I am considered an early career researcher. I already have publications. I've already done quite a bit. But because I accepted this position, so this is where I am now. I don't lead. I don't make strategic decisions. I don't manage the budget. If you actually get to see the budget, you're lucky. And I was expected to now to sort of fend for, you are expected as a postdoctoral fellow or researcher to look for funding. So I was now in that position where I had to fight for grants, write grant applications, and look for money. In my previous position, I was managing the money. So the money was already there, and the money was already, I didn't have to make grant applications. I could support grant applications, but I didn't have to make grant applications. So, yeah. And I also felt like this was something I had to prove myself all over again that I'm worthy of being a leader. I'm worthy of being recognized as a senior academic. I have to prove myself every day. I have to prove myself all the time that I am worthy of this position. So think about it, that when you then come in as a postdoc, what I then found was that being a project manager and being managing a huge portfolio of studies and being a postdoc are two completely separate positions. So when I arrived, I was now being managed by someone who had very little experience of managing projects, but was academically senior to me. So I had to report to those people. I had to, because that's the position and that's how it's sort of positioned. That's how I felt. So it could be different in the other universities where you are, whether in the US, in Canada, or everywhere else in the world, or in Australia. It could be different, but this is what I felt. And I'm not sure how postdocs are managed within Africa, like in South Africa, in other African countries. We manage postdocs in South Africa with the grant funding that we had, and they were fairly senior. They were considered quite, fairly senior, not very early career as you would when you're here in the UK. So the second issue that you need to consider, it's very, very important. Think about it carefully before you make that move. Is your skills. When you're in Africa, this is something that I discovered. We accumulate a huge skill set because we don't have enough people in academia and we don't have enough people working in some of those senior positions. So you quickly get skills, leadership skills, strategic thinking, diplomacy, management of grants, financial management of grants, managing funders, managing stakeholders, doing oversight of the research that you're doing, and also you train other professionals, other researchers to how to do research. And that skill set, when you arrive in the UK as a postdoc, you sort of get de-skilled. That's a very big frustration that I've seen, and I've asked other postdocs that are coming from outside the UK. They have that feeling as well, that they sort of feel like they're a little bit de-skilled now, because that huge skill set, you don't have anywhere to use it because you're not in that position, unless if you're going to leave academia and start doing research support, which is project management, research management. As a postdoc, you're applying for funding, like I said. The focus is on academic publishing. The trajectory really for a postdoc is to become a professor, becoming a complete academic, but the trajectory for being a project manager, which I was in fairly senior positions, is to start moving towards places like Wellcome Trust, NIHR, managing huge portfolios of money and managing huge grants. So there are two different career sets. But where I come from in Zimbabwe, you find that a lot of postdocs are doing both. A lot of postdocs do both, so they have a very large and wide skill set. And think about it carefully, because how does it play out? There will be a lot of drama, believe you me, a lot of drama and chaos, because you will feel underutilized, you will feel de-skilled, like you have this huge skill set, you know a lot of things, but you can't use them, which I think is across. Doesn't really matter if you're in academia. I've noticed this with a lot of migrants. When you ask them about their careers, they will tell you that they feel de-skilled and they feel like they can't utilize all those skills that we accumulate. When we are here, when we're in Africa, we have to learn these skills because we don't have enough people. But when you come here, a lot of things are siloed. So people who are in, project management are project managers. They don't worry about academia. They don't have to teach most of the time. But in Africa, you probably be doing both, and you have a huge skill set which you might not use. And a lot of times I found myself overstepping. So you overstep your boundaries sometimes and you get yourself into a lot of trouble because you sort of know too much. You sort of know how to navigate certain things. You sort of know how to navigate and manage people. People management is a skill set that I think a lot of Africans have, which I find that in the UK there's much less of that, because people are siloed and people mind their own business. They stay in their lanes. In Africa, we cross each other's lanes all the time. We work across each other, so we learn to manage people, we learn to manage seniors, we learn to manage juniors, we learn to manage huge teams of people with a lot of chaos. So we have that skill set. But here in the UK, if you do that, you overstep your boundary. So I overstep my boundary many times. Yeah, so make sure when you do get that job, it's very exciting. And when you apply for the job, look at the role, look at your skill set. I would discourage you to apply for something that you are over-skilled for, because I know a lot of us want to actually just move to the diaspora, to move to the UK, to move to the US, to move to Canada, to move to Australia. So we tend to apply even for jobs where we are overqualified. It will give you a lot of frustration. You will survive it, but it will give you a lot of frustration because you are overskilled. So try and find something that matches your skill set. It's difficult to find, but it's manageable. We'll talk about that in the next video. So questions to ask. After during the interview, they'll always ask you a question like, do you have something that you want to ask? Ask, will I have the opportunity to use my full skill set? And let them know what your full skill set is. Ask them that question. They might actually broaden your portfolio if you tell them up front. Ask them the level of decision making where you are. Like what's the hierarchy of decision making? What kinds of decisions am I going to be allowed to make for myself as a postdoc? Because they might be managed slightly differently. So it's very good for a postdoctoral person to ask, what level of decision making am I entering? So you understand the hierarchy and you understand where you are pitching and what you'll be involved in. And then ask about managing teams. So those are the things that, a few things that I want to share in this particular video about, after some time you want to sit down like I'm doing now and reflect on your journey and see where you are and see the frustrations along the way and how you got to where you got to and what's the next thing to do. So I will catch you in the next video. So in the next couple of videos, I will talk about the current global talent visa opportunities within the UK. I understand the UK system and what the new immigration rules, what impact they've had on the recruitment of global talent or of skilled workers, specifically for people going into academic positions. I know a lot of UK universities have changed the way they're doing their recruitment. We'll have a discussion about that and how you can navigate that system so you can still come, but think about a couple of things. Then I'll also do a video on the financial burden of migrating into the UK. And then we'll talk, obviously, we're in academia, about imposter syndrome. Being at the best university in the world, I suffer from imposter syndrome all the time. So you have to, remind yourself all the time that, I deserve to be here. I'm also the best in what I do, and I deserve to be here. And then I'll do also another video set about recognition and how you can feel valued in a huge institution where everybody seems to be the best, and also in an institution where everything is siloed into small packets and you have to stay within your lane but also still feel valued in your own lane. And then, of course, being a migrant, single mom with kids in the UK, I shall talk about the social life in the UK, what's been happening, what happens, when you have children and you have to manage a job, you have to teach, you have to do so many things. What happens when you're in the UK? And yeah, follow the series and we will have very nice discussions on this platform. And thank you for coming and welcome.